Ready.
All right, good morning, everyone. We're here in Charles City, Iowa. We're gathered with public employees, a lot of school teachers and retired school teachers here to talk about a bill that was introduced in the Iowa legislature on Monday. It's a bill that really kind of guts the Iowa's 40-year-old collective bargaining act. And in 1974, Governor Ray, a Republican governor, signed into law a collective bargaining bill that was in response to some strikes of public employees. And it struck a good balance to allow public employees and the state to come to terms of employment through arbitration to resolve their disputes. And it's been a system that's worked wonderfully. Very few contracts are disputed. I think less than 2% are actually go to arbitration. And it's a very even-handed third-party decision-making system. And it's served the state just wonderfully well. And it's given a voice to not only the taxpayers, but also a voice to the state employees. And it allows us really to attract good teachers and good state employees for the Department of Transportation, for public safety, for all of these issues. And the way that this has been done is very disturbing. There was no input from, no bipartisan input. It was basically a bill that just was filed out of the blue on Monday with no input from anybody else. No input from public employees, no input from the Democratic Party or Democratic legislators, just from the governor and from Republican legislators. And so it's a very suspect. It's a very suspect piece of legislation because it's a solution in search of a problem that doesn't exist. And so to talk more about that, I'm going to introduce Sharon Steckman, who's a state representative from Mason City, and as a retired teacher can add some more information about the legislation.
Okay, thank you. This bill is on the fast track. They want as little public input as possible, and that's why we're trying to reach out to as many people as we can. We have a rally in Mason City at noon today, hoping to galvanize support. I don't know about you, but I want to paraphrase what a senator said. I want to make sure my kids are taught by top-notch teachers. I want to make sure my fire department, those people are trained well and dedicated to their job, and the policemen, the social workers that work with our kids at risk, all of those positions, I want to make sure we have the best people in those jobs. And this kind of guts that whole thing. Right away we have a teacher shortage already, and this will make it worse. It'll make it easier for the grievance procedure has been gutted. They can only bargain wages, nothing else. Most teachers bargain both. Actually, I looked up some statistics because I've heard that, public employees are paid way more than anyone else in Iowa. Not true. If you take a comparable job with wages and benefits, a teacher makes 17% less than the comparable job in the private sector. So those facts that have been coming out are actually alternative facts. So I'd like to, and I hope you will contact our Republican legislators all around our area, because they're the ones that are putting this bill forward, putting it on the fast track, and we need to stop them and let them know that this is not good for Iowa. It's not good for our communities. It'll pull everyone down. So I'd like to introduce Sue Turner, thank you, to say a few more words.
We're going to hear from a few people who are affected directly by this bill. So, Susan Turner.
Hi, I'm Susan Turner, and I'm a 24-year educator, and I teach in Nashua, Iowa. I guess what I would like to say today is that I'm very concerned about how the conversation has shifted with Governor Branstad and the Republicans. Governor Branstad keeps bringing up responsibility to taxpayers, and that's why he has proposed this piece of legislation. I think that's a tired excuse. I think the conversation should be about kids, and I have not once heard him say anything about kids. As an educator, I go to work every day for kids. He has talked about people having skin in the game and that we need to pay our fair share of our insurance, and I have skin in the game every day, as do my colleagues around me, and social workers and the people that go to work every day in the state as a public employee. We work for kids. When kids fail, we fail. We have a personal responsibility to help these young people. I'm concerned about the most vulnerable population in Iowa. The legislation that has gone through recently, or executive order with Medicaid, privatizing it, that affects Iowa's most vulnerable population and those that don't have a voice. Collective bargaining changes, also the lack of state supplemental aid to schools. All of those things have an impact. They have an impact on our children's education. They have an impact on the services to our most vulnerable population. And it's a huge concern. And I would like Governor Branstad and the Republicans to respond to how this is going to help kids. When our teachers and our social workers can't afford to stay in those jobs anymore, how is that going to affect kids? And that's my utmost concern. And moving forward, that's what I would like the conversation to be about. Thank you.
Very good. And then, Phoebe, if you want to talk?
Yeah, I'm Phoebe Pittman, and I teach here in Charles City. I'd like to, I think, talk about the notion, the narrative that negotiations are adversarial. I view it as two parties who are deeply vested in really doing what's best for kids, coming to the table to voice their concerns, what their issues are, and what they think will make a better workplace and a better environment, not only for employees, but for students as well. And when you take that voice away, you're going to create contracts that won't be able to attract and potentially retain teachers as well as the ones that we already have. When you have two groups who are vested in the future of education and doing what's best for kids, coming together and talking as mature adults, quality decisions get made, quality contracts get ratified, and you continue to attract quality educators. I think that without that, we're going to see a loss in retention and getting new educators in. Jenna?
I am Jenna Hagland. I worked for the state of Iowa as a social worker for over 10 years, and through that was part of the union. I have seen what the union can do. I've seen them advocate for us. Ultimately, when you work for a big company like the state of Iowa, you become a number. So for me personally, what the union did for me is it made me a person, it gave me a voice, it gave me somebody that I could count on at the higher level in terms of state government. And I've seen that personally work for me and my job. I am also a mother and I have children in the school systems here in Charles City. I worked with child abuse, dependent adult abuse. So when you talk about the most vulnerable, you are talking about from children to death. You are talking about everybody in the state of Iowa, every single taxpayer that is out there can become the most vulnerable. So if you think that there isn't skin on the game, there is not one person in this room, there's one person in this state who doesn't have skin in the game or at one time or another will have skin in the game when you become the most vulnerable. You cannot tell me that one person has not had somebody die in their family or go through a significant illness or has struggled with parenting issues, with anything that is resolving or revolved around what it is that makes you vulnerable from your perception. So this is what social workers do. Then the union stands behind these social workers. The union stands behind our teachers so that we can become advocates for these individuals. Thank you. Now I'm going to introduce Barb, Osage Superintendent.
Thank you. My name is Barb Schwaman, Osage Superintendent. I'm very concerned about all the cuts that are being made because education is the foundation of our democracy. I look at this young man right here and think, is he going to have the same great public education that I had growing up? And I can honestly answer you and say things are changing. Over the last 6 years, our public education has been under attack with low SSA. 1.1% is not enough money to help our schools maintain what we are doing. We're already seeing a 35% cut in teacher education programs, which means our best and brightest aren't going into education because, of course, they can make more money in other fields and they won't be attacked by public and that lack of respect that we have. So I do feel for our future. I'm very concerned for rural Iowa. We need rural Iowa to thrive, for Iowa to be the same great place it has been. Public education has made Iowa a great place, and it will always be a great place as long as we support public education. So I'm very concerned about SSA. We need that to be 2%, like the governor said. 2%, for us to think that that's a great number, is not. For us to be begging for 2% is not a great thing, but we'll take it at this point because 1.1 will change the landscape. This is forcing rural small schools that have been traditionally doing great jobs with students to not be able to operate the same way. We also need the SAVE to be extended. We need that sunset to go away, because those things are helping us with infrastructure needs, things that need to happen here in rural Iowa to keep up with everyone and keep up with the 21st century education. So again, we have grave concerns. We want students here to have the same great future that we had when we were students. So thank you.
So thank you, everyone who spoke and everybody who turned out to show support for public education and public employees and the system. I think that served the state so well. We've got a few members of the press here. If there's any questions, we could deal with some questions if there's anything from the press. If not, we'll conclude the press conference.
Basically hoping to get 2%, how are you hoping to enact going from 1.1% that's currently on the floor to 2%?
What it comes down to budgeting priorities, okay? And 2% for a lot of rural districts isn't really enough. I mean, really, rural districts particularly have been underfunded compared to urban districts, and they probably need more, something like 6% state supplemental aid or allowable growth. And like I said, it comes down to priorities. And right now we have about $400 million in tax credits. They're not even on the table to look as a way to help fund education. We're really, this year we had to balance the budget by cutting $115 million out of the current year budget. That wasn't done through anything but cutting social programs that hurts families and hurts education. We took $30 million alone out of higher education in the state through the community colleges and through the regent universities. That's hurting our future. That's hurting the ability of Iowa to compete in the modern workforce, and to attract and retain good jobs in Iowa. I mean, we're really taking away the investment that we need to make in the people of the state, and that's what this amounts to.
And what ultimately would be the percent? Because I heard mention that 2% is just a bare minimum. What is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate percent that is being hoped for?
Well, I think, like I said, I think a lot of rural districts are asking for 6%. What I hear from a lot of superintendents around North Iowa is that they really need 6%. I think 4% would be a good start. But I mean, 1%, and the thing is, the governor, and we talk in terms of percentages, but you talk in terms of real dollars. The governor proposed 2%, which is about $78 million. That's what he proposed 5 weeks ago. And now, the Republican House and Senate passed 1.1%, which is $40 million. It's almost half of what the governor proposed. And it's like we're having a race to the bottom to see how little we can give towards education funding. And it just shows that there's a priority that's out of whack. If the priority was truly education, 60% of new money that's coming in revenues would go to education, because 60% is the percentage of the budget that the state spends on education. And so that's really what this comes down to. It comes down to priorities. And right now the priority is corporate welfare as opposed to education and children.
Each 0.1%, if we get to 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, that saves jobs out in rural Iowa. Paraeducators, cooks, bus drivers, things that the school districts in rural Iowa have to look at cutting to maintain what we are doing right now. So again, those people are buying things locally out in this economy. They're buying and shopping local. So by putting that money into the schools, you're ultimately putting it back into rural Iowa. So that's why we're big, and we've been down lobbying in Des Moines, many of us, week after week after week, saying give us a little bit more, because that helps all of our people.
And what's the ultimately with what's being proposed right now, what's the end game with that? If the 1.1%, what happens with that for Iowa schools? If that goes through and that's all the money Iowa schools are able to get?
That's our new money, that's what we have to budget for. So again, some of us have some money that's saved back, our unspent balance, so we'll have to eat into that unspent balance.
Or it means program cuts. Charles City's cut, I think, $2 million over the last 10 years. And what does that mean? That means loss of teacher positions. Every time you lose a teacher position, you lose a program, right? Maybe you don't offer that foreign language that you used to offer. Maybe you don't have that, athletic program or that extracurricular activity anymore. And you cut programs. And the thing is that you kind of cut the programs that make for a good education, like the arts. and things like that, you know, because that tends to be what gets cut first. And that really is what makes, you know, a well-rounded education, what has made Iowa a great place for education over the last 150 years since we founded the state, so.
That's all right,
Okay, well, thanks, appreciate the questions, and again, thank you for everybody who came out and everybody who's watching at home. So thank you, and that concludes the press conference.